Once more to the lands of Cronus, and today we're collating chaotic concerns and committing to crucifying comrades and creatures. With the cutesy bits out of the way, it's the same challenge as the Eldar, just as the Chaos this time. Rules are codified on screen. If you care or miss the Eldar run, this should be pretty easy, to be honest. Jumping right into the run, after saying hello to Strategic Steve here, I'm actually going to be skipping over all of the skirmish maps unless there was something actually unique to say about them. Suffice to say, I created Chaos Marines and swarmed the enemy till they joined the Chaos, one way or the other. Blood for the Blood God and all that. The first factional target is going to be the Imperial Guard, entirely because they're close by. They act as a good learning point for how I tackle the entire campaign. First things first, the Builder, called a Heretic, has the ability to work faster in exchange for bleeding all over everything. Pretty good embodiment of chaos right there. And since I want them gone after I use them anyway, this is exclusively a good thing, giving me crisper timings. I land pretty firmly on a build order of Temple, Power Generator, Armory, and Turrets. This is because the Marines go on to gain access to mobile Gatling guns from the Armory, and they need support to handle the early aggression. Turrets are a good choice for that support, since they seem to have a weird damage type that's still debuffed against vehicles, but not as much as it's supposed to be, and can be upgraded into missile turrets. I learned pretty quickly that letting the enemy cook my command center is fine, so long as it isn't burnt, and I make use of the most ubiquitous trick in the entire game. Dragging units under turret fire. After that, the entire HQ battle is pretty easy, so I'm going to take a moment to talk about the notable Chaos units. I've already brought up the Heretics and Space Marines. Suffice to say, they're the bread and butter of the whole run, functional but not really all that interesting. Horror Squads are my anti-vehicle and building, and can be straight up teleported onto the battlefield anywhere I already have vision. So, straight into the fight. They're bad at killing anything else, but have surprising bulk, so you can just ignore everything shooting at them. They're a good unit, and I generally use them as, well, specific anti-building, but, you know, it's a good niche. Berserkers are the melee-only units, and it confirmed my suspicion that melee just straight up sucks in this game. The Berserkers were practically unkillable, but also couldn't really kill anything, and it basically means that you're bringing units into melee so that they can't shoot things, which is not useful when I can't use my own guns. And last is the Cultist. They're the beginning game scout, and don't really do anything except act as a detector and a cheap meat shield. I can't really use them as meat shields. The detection is basically worthless because they don't do enough damage on their own side of things. And that really just leaves them as cheap units that can capture strategic points whenever I don't actually want to have a unit presence. Technically there's a few more units, but the only one worth mentioning is now the Relic unit, the Bloodthirster. And it is the single most busted unit in the game, barring the Necron Monolith. In a normal army, it can single-handedly turn the tide of battle, and in this run, it's just a worse horror. Which is sad, to be honest, because it is a good unit. It does so much damage. It flies twice, heals mid-battle, and yeah, it's a good unit. Last thing of note for the HQ battle for the Imperial Guard specifically was a new glitch where they shot at a strategic point. I'm not entirely sure why, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that the game handles strategic points as if they're neutral entities when they're uncaptured, and there was just a glitch on the back end, getting them to shoot at it rather than trying to capture it. After a little bit of map movement, I deal with the orcs to deal with the traditional they're going to kill the Tau problem. And the early pressure that they send against me is actually so great that, despite the fact that I'm using the same strategy as last time, letting the enemy shoot my HQ while I build up the base, I actually have to tech up enough to get missile turrets because of just how many vehicles they're sending at me. Outside of that, they're nice and simple, and I really go to town using the horror squad en masse to take out all of the optional objectives. And then swarming Gorguts with a horde of units with heavy bolters. It was incredibly easy, and honestly, so was our next target, the Space Marines, who aren't even worth giving a proper segment. They literally didn't put up a fight. They don't even have a relic unit. There is nothing interesting to comment on them about. Then, after the Space Marines and Chaos are done, I actually have a race worth talking about, but it's not because of any difficulties fighting the Eldar, because for some reason their HQ battle doesn't actually take advantage of stealth. It doesn't. The only thing that could have made it difficult is the only thing that they don't use. So what actually happens is I clear both optional objectives, and then find out that, oh right, wiping out the additional objectives not only relieves pressure on you, but also starts spawning in units that I now have to, on a timer, kill because they are breaking my rules. And they aren't even great in a normal playthrough because they still take up population limit. And despite the fact that you can end the Eldar battle by just capturing the 3 critical locations that it tells you to and holding them for a set amount of time, I wipe out the Eldar base, including their relic unit, because alternate hidden win condition, you can't lose if they're all dead. Next on the chopping block is the Tau, second to last in the murder pile, and they actually had so ridiculously much pressure that I had to adopt a brand new strategy. Abandoning my base and building a new one. Which was actually really difficult without workers that can just teleport right past the enemy. I'm going to save you a little bit of the trial and error, and what ended up working is building a minefield on this exact spot so that the vehicle that would always find me, only one for some reason, would stop on the mines and just repeatedly explode. Then I got to build a base while literally under active fire from Tau stealth suits, which don't actually do any damage to buildings, but I was having constant issues with the building process, by the way, since workers naturally move around a little bit while they build the structure, presumably because the devs wanted it to feel at least a little bit naturalistic, but it's a serious problem right now because it moves them into the fire of the stealth suits, and I can't build more workers right now! Because nothing else about this mission is actually interesting outside of this earliest section, this is a good time to talk about collision in this game, and just how weird it is. As far as I can figure, there's 4 different collision values that a unit can have. They've got a static box, a movement box, a melee box, and squad box, if I've got my guess right. They use their movement collision box while pathing around, which is usually smaller than their static collision, and lets them get into places that they can't legally designate as their final move position. But with a little bit of finagling, you can actually cancel movement while the unit is sitting in these illegal spots, and then watch them do the most ridiculous of pathing whenever they're told to move, even to where they are. Static collision box is usually pretty large, as in double the size of the movement collision box at minimum, and it's using a grid system on the map mesh to figure out if the final position of their movement is a legal position to stand. And if it isn't, it moves itself to a potentially nearby spot. This is how I'm explaining I try to move it to where it is, but it couldn't actually be there legally, so it goes all the way over to Narnia. The melee box is potentially not actually a collision box, but disabling of collision for specific actions like capturing a strategic point or melee attacking at other units, or getting caught up in a melee attack animation. And the last box, the squad hitbox, is really funky. It's only used when you move a control group of multiple squads, minimum 2, and it is huge. As in, the size of the squad, if all reinforcements were there, using static collision boxes in a formation that is different for every squad. As far as I can guess, the only reason it's used is to prevent squads from trying to move to exactly the same location, which you can still trick the game into letting happen, and it can result in the literal immovable squad ball, where nothing can move. Theoretically, you could get yourself soft locked like this, but I don't know how you could manage to get it into something that extreme. But yeah, with all that done and out of the way, Tau died, pathetically. They've got strong static defenses, but I have infinite time and money. So, endless waves to victory. I take advantage of the forced rule break in the Necron mission to fully power up the commander, because the Chaos Commander is the only one that changes into something else, the Demonic Prince, which is super cool and problematic. I actually wish I didn't do this post-emptively. But yeah, Necron is a forced loss, dancing lobsters, and all that. But let's actually look at how we solve this literally unsurvivable ball of death the Necron sent out. First inclination was abandoning my base to live in the back corner, because they don't actually often attack back here. But the movement system makes that difficult to begin with and impossible later. Because I can't get anything more than my HQ. And I can't build a turret because that requires a temple. Over the course of literally doubling the amount of time I spent on this run, testing different solutions, the first thing that I found worked was, well, abandoning my base again, using the commander to tank so that I could actually get my workers into the HQ-specific gimmick, allowing teleports across the map, and then taking that commander inside the enemy base that's supposed to start generating units after you trigger the end of the mission, and building a new base in there, under active fire from the Necron, building inside their own base. It was glorious. This is silly. I love this. Now, the rest of the map isn't really doing anything all that special, unfortunately. So I chose to see what happens when you don't clear the optional objectives, and yeah, turns out they affect the entire map. And it actually made getting out easier because it wasn't checking collision between units wandering around the map, or trying to convince my commander to attack. So, yeah. Total victory. Again, this was kind of unexpected, to be honest. I thought the early pressure would be unbreakable in a fair number of spots. And it actually was, from both the Tau and the Necron, out of all factions to do it. Necron was kind of expected, but Tau? I'm not looking forward to the horror that is going to be what comes next, but it is going to be one fun amalgamation.